Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our online webinar in collaboration with HackerJob. My name is Stacey. I am the Digital Talent Lead here at M Brown Group. A little bit about us. So we're an online retail business. We're a top UK clothing and footwear digital retailer. We've been around for some time, so we've been established for over 160 years. Some of the brands you may have heard of are JD Williams, Simply Be, Jacamo. We're based here in the heart of Manchester and have been for many, many years. And really what our business aims to do is really champion inclusivity. We want to make sure our customers look and feel amazing. We've been on a bit of a journey over the last couple of years, and being such an established business, we, as you can imagine, have got quite a bit of legacy technology. So really what we've been focused on is building a new e-commerce platform. We've done this successfully with Simply Be and Jacamo. We're currently in the process of launching JD Williams, which hopefully should be done over the next few months. So really what we're here today to talk about is the transformation behind our legacy technology estate and how that's evolving into more of a cutting-edge microservice driven business. We've got new ways of working. We've adopted agile methodologies over the last couple of years. So our team today are going to talk you through their experience, what they've learned, and really kind of what they've experienced from moving away from more of an old tech stack to more new. So I'm going to pass over to the team. Some of the team here on the call, we've got Simon, who's one of our tech leads, Diane, who's our head of cloud and platform, Dawn, who is one of our product managers, David, who's one of our architects, Neil, one of our graduate developers. So I'm going to hand over to David, who's going to talk a little bit more and give you a bit of a background as to why, what, and how. So over to you, David.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Swain, and I'm a solution architect at N Brown, so working across our digital channels. So my architecture role covers our legacy websites, our newly developed websites, and also our mobile apps. Today, I'm going to be giving you a brief overview of the architectural journey that N Brown's websites have been going on. And firstly, let's have a bit of history. So N Brown's legacy websites date back to the early 2000s. So we're not a newcomer to e-commerce, but being around for so long does mean that some of those early technology choices have now been superseded by newer approaches. Our legacy websites were built using Java and IBM WebSphere application server. And as an enterprise e-commerce solution, it served us for hundreds of millions of sessions over the last 20 years. As you can see from the conceptual diagram on screen, from an architecture perspective, our legacy websites consist of monolithic front end and back end, which is tightly coupled. And we have legacy integrations such as IBM MQ, Oracle Fusion Middleware, and Oracle FatWire CMS. On the legacy front end, it's not a mobile first in design, which is now something that's really important to N Brown, as approximately 80% of our traffic comes from mobile devices. With the aim of building a modern mobile first web experience to meet current and future business requirements, a decision was made to move to a Next.js and React website with microservice architecture. React was preliminarily chosen because of its kind of performance, developer-friendly features, SEO benefits, and its cost effectiveness. Simon's, our tech lead, is going to talk a little bit more about this later. You can see from the diagram on the right-hand side in terms of our new web architecture, we're now going to have a mobile-first designed front end. Behind that front end is a microservice architecture consisting of small independent services that communicate with the front end using REST APIs and allow for flexibility and scalability. While some of our microservices are true to the definition and have their own data stores, we're still heavily reliant on many wrapper microservices as well, as the underlying master data continues to be held on our legacy mainframe. So we're still using some IBM MQ and also a reduced amount of Oracle Fusion Middleware and Oracle FatWire. You'll also notice that we've now moved to using a headless CMS, which aims to separate the content management system from the presentation layer. Hopefully the diagram color scheme clearly illustrates the transition we're going on from that red legacy tech to the green target architecture. We're now going to move on to the next slide, which is going to have a look at the future direction of our website architecture. So what I deliberately omitted from the last slide was that despite building a modern React Next.js front end, it's still actually a monolithic application. So to address this, we're currently working on breaking down that front end monolith into micro front ends. So this is a similar approach that we've used for our microservices, which enables us to develop, deploy, and maintain specific parts of our web application independently. We're also looking to adopt new patterns in terms of backend for front end, GraphQL, and Kafka eventing to see how that can improve our website architecture going forwards. In terms of our backend, we're looking at breaking down that monolithic backend using a component-based or composable architecture approach. And this is going to move capabilities such as our order management system, our product information management, as well as other components to a SaaS-based solution. There's also an aim to move to truer microservices that are not reliant on our mainframe. So in conclusion, what we're aiming to achieve in this transition from a legacy website architecture to our target state architecture is a solution with the ability to have vertically aligned squads that can deliver and be responsible for end-to-end features like checkout, product details pages, and credit, minimizing dependencies that we have and development bottlenecks across squads. And hopefully this will put us in a strong position for the next 20 years. So next, let me hand over to Dawn, who's going to talk about a product manager's perspective.
Sorry.
Apologies, you can hear me now. So I'm sharing a room with Diane because we're just both in the office. So we thought, might as well. So in terms of the changes, when we did first start on this transition, I was actually working up in customer service as a change analyst that was managing our digital contact channels. And then when we moved over to our second brand, coming over to the new web, I was a QA, so very different experiences in both elements of moving to the new web. So from the customer service, seeing it from a customer's point of view and what they were getting coming across, and then moving into the QA role of ensuring that what we were delivering was to the satisfaction and expectation of a customer. So currently, yes, I am now in a product manager role, and I've got a more holistic view of how we bring to life from the design to the delivery. So when we move in from the legacy system, we did have to prioritize features that were a must for delivery of go live. So we have continued to deliver features and existing ones from our legacy sites using the data on how we can enhance them. Because as David's explained, we've moved from using a more monolithic legacy service to now being more microservices. So the benefit of what the new system has brought us is the flexibility of how we deliver. So Simon and Neil are going to touch on feature toggles, so I won't go into that much, very text-based, but by us enhancing and using them feature toggles, it's allowed us to deliver features safely, so also not to the detriment of any other ongoing work. So we can iterate, bring that out, and just keep enhancing features going forward, which from a legacy point of view, we didn't have that capability. So since also like moving to the new ways of deploying, which again, they will touch on, and so David's kind of showed some of it, but Neil and Simon will go into it more details. They're very different from our legacy system, so we could be deploying probably once a month usually, where going forward we can deliver up to 3-4 times a week. So it's allowed us to be more iterative with the drops, so it allows us to enhance our features a lot more quickly. So this flexibility has allowed us to pivot when required to ensure that, you know, we're working on the right thing at the right time. We're much more joined and consolidated as a team across all the different disciplines, which when we first started this journey, obviously I was on the flip end of it, so I didn't see it as much, but now it's like seeing how we all come together as a team from them splits and working with the same journey and the end point that we do want to deliver. So that has allowed us to take accountability, to take learnings from each aspect of the functionality that we do deliver, and it also changes our approach each time we do future deliveries. So we don't have a blame culture, we look at what we've delivered, and instead we take them learnings going forward. So quick whistle stop tour, and I will hand off over to Neil and Simon.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Dawn, and good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, I'm Simon. I'm one of our front-end tech leads at N Brown, and I'll be just co-presenting some of the slides that you'll see here with Neil, who's one of our grads. I'll let him introduce himself. But just to dive straight in, so I guess the slides that we'll be covering, I'll cover our kind of transition from a tech point of view, from that legacy system that's already been mentioned to what we call our new web platform, our more kind of modern platform. And then Neil's going to cover the kind of white labeling or multi-tenancy that goes with that, some of our feature flagging solutions, our deployment pipelines, and the CMS systems that we use. And then I'll just jump back in to talk about what we're doing at the moment in terms of micro front ends that David's already covered. So this slide in particular, so moving away from legacy, which is kind of WebSphere, a Java-based web application, to our new web platform, and what was involved in that. So this kind of predates me joining the business. It was back in 2019, I believe, that a group within N Brown DT began to look at several new tech stacks as a replacement for IBM WebSphere, what we call legacy here, which was used across all of our trading titles at that time. So this took place across a series of workshops, again with the kind of group within N Brown's DT department. Why did we want to move away from WebSphere? So for several reasons. It had mobile responsiveness kind of built in, but backfilled in what we might call adaptive rather than truly responsive. We had a lot of testing in there, and it had to get again be backfilled using like a device lab and things like that. So that needs to be improved. The tech stack itself also, like Dawn mentioned, it kind of impedes our release cadence. So I think once a month is probably being that might be where they are now. We're sitting at the time. I think it was more in the region of kind of 6 weeks, which obviously that prevents us from releasing value to our customers anywhere near as rapidly as we'd like to. And also the test environments were quite limited in terms of the automated tests that we had in those deployment pipelines. So lots of room for improvement. I guess we've already kind of discussed, and you'll see in the slide where we ended up. But some of the other tech that we kind of looked at in this process. So we looked at Angular as an SPA, Vue as an SPA, and then Vue again, but in the Nuxt kind of framework. React as an SPA and React within Next. ES6 and FreeMaker, which if you know what that is, you're doing better than I am. I think it's a Java-based web platform, and ES6 and Timeleaf, which is another Java-based platform. So I think we quickly ruled out both of those Java options because the trend at that time was very much kind of going towards JavaScript, and that we want to an extent follow the trends. That's where the skills are. That's where we can employ from, and that's obviously the more modern approach. So to make the decision, several top-level factors were considered, including testability, which you mentioned earlier on, the ease of gradual implementation. So we didn't want to go big bang. We operate across a few trading titles. We need to kind of incrementally roll out. Performance, that's web performance. Modularity, so how we can kind of use composition within the tech to kind of share components and such like. SEO. Future-proofing, so we need to keep with a kind of modern tech stack. So like David mentioned, that'll carry us forward for the next 20 years. Third-party integrations, ease of build, which will increase the release cadence, and the community behind the tech as well, which is very important. So the Java-based solutions, which are the FreeMaker and Timeleaf, were discounted first as the web had kind of shifted, like I say, more towards JavaScript at that time. Going with the trend gives us that future-proofing that we need, the community, the third-party integrations, all of which are on that checklist, as well as the support as we kind of set out in those requirements. So 2 libraries very quickly became the front runners, which were Vue and React, due to their feature sets, the community adoption, and the general kind of speed and performance. Not to mention the kind of the dev experience was better. So to conclude, the workshops, proof of concepts, and a couple of show and tells were delivered for very simplified versions of our product list pages and our product display pages, which included some kind of base interactivity such as filtering systems, pagination, and an API implementation. So what did we look at? We looked at bundle size, performance, developer experience, SEO. Those were all scored. And coupled with the kind of community aspect behind those, React came out just about on top. From there, Next.js as a framework became a very compelling choice due to the functionality it provides out of the box. I think we just moved on one slide, too many there. So Next kind of was very much kind of very compelling choice because it gives us a lot of the kind of routing and all those kind of server-side functionalities that we've quite out of the box that React didn't at the time give us. The statistics that we captured during these workshops and proof of concepts were really crucial when we came to playing back the decision to the wider business to kind of get buy-in, because this is quite a big shift from one tech stack to another. So we needed to kind of prove that it was a worthwhile thing to do. So where did we end up? So from a top level kind of tech stack decision, we came to the conclusion that we should use Next.js, which obviously also incorporates a React library. We wanted to use TypeScript for that type safety aspect, Redux Saga for state management, as well as SWR. CSS modules, which next very nicely gives us out of the box. Just made sense with what we wanted to do with our kind of composition. Post CSS, so this is used for mixins and shared kind of shared style system, working very closely with the UX team. Jest for our unit tests and Cypress for our end-to-end tests. Lots more tech besides that, but that's what I'd probably describe as our kind of top-level tech stack that we kind of landed on. Some of the kind of supporting tech that we kind of interact with around the sides, still Java for our microservices. So each of our services that we connect to are Java-based microservices. GitLab for our source code management, as well as CI/CD and feature flags, which Neil's going to talk over in a bit more detail later on. Strapi, again, Neil will talk about this later on, so we won't step on his toes. Keycloak we use for authentication. AWS for infrastructure, Diane's going to talk a bit about that, as well as Akamai for our CDN, some of our monitoring, image management, that kind of stuff. SonarQube for static code analysis, and NX for kind of a computational caching layer, which we moved away from eventually, but that's where we started at. From there, we began on moving our first trading title over from legacy to what we call our new web platform. And a plan was put in place to incrementally transition to our other trading titles over time. With that, I'll pass over to Neil to just talk about white labeling.
Thanks, Simon. Yes, so as Simon said before, I'm Neil. I'm one of the graduate front-end developers at M Brown. Also, as Stacey said earlier on, M Brown sort of incorporates a few different brands, and we wanted to build one product or one code base that could output multiple websites from that one source. So some of the issues that we had with this, or some of the problems that we had with this, is obviously multiple brands have multiple styling limitations and reasons from our UX team. So we achieve this multiple brands by creating theming mixin in post CSS, returning CSS variables depending on a brand environment variable. So this includes things like font sizes, colors, headings, and font families. Some of the problems we ran into were having different icons per brand, which is quite important for having a different brand perspective across different websites. So at the moment, we're running like a little script to copy over brand-specific icons and then importing them. But we're working on another solution where we can have multiple icons and render them depending on brand variables, as mentioned before. If we just move on to the next slide, talk about feature toggles. So with our websites, we have multiple features to sort of embrace the customer experience. So for this, we have feature toggles that help us during testing and help us roll out these different features. So we use Unleash proxy to serve the flags to our code base, and we do this through, we also have our feature toggles running through GitLab, which is a lot easier for people like our testers and product managers to be able to switch on and off toggles depending on whether like things go wrong or if we want to turn them off at certain times. We did start this by using environment variables, but the issue was that it required a full rebuild for the feature flag to take effect. So having it through GitLab makes things a lot easier, and updates are a lot quicker and live. Move on to the Git flow. On to the next slide, please. Okay, so we have a few different environments that we go through. So once a feature is built by the developer, it's put through into its own feature dev environment, and this has a whole bunch of mock services and unit tests and Cypress tests, as Simon mentioned before. They get run against it. Each brand gets its own feature dev environment, and we can spin up a feature dev environment from one branch for each brand, and this is where our QAs and testers go into this. We also run SonarQube against this, so it helps with to help with our code coverage and spotting any code smells or duplicate code and code quality checks. Once this has been tested and QA is happy with this, we can then move it into our QA environment, which has more live services. We also then run end-to-end tests and then have QA going in, manually testing things as well. Once this is done, we then have a pre-production environment, which is similar to QA. It's just that one last environment just to make sure everything is squeaky clean before we send it out to production, which is our live environment for customers to go and use. And then, as Simon mentioned before, I'll just briefly talk about CMS. So I'm quite new to the CMS squad, so I'd never actually really used Strapi, apart from just very recently. But we're currently making a transition over to Amplience, which is our new CMS, a strategic CMS provider. The reason for this is, as we were talking about, having multiple brands from this one code base, Strapi had a bit of a limitation on that. So one thing that Amplience does have, a big feature that it has, is multiple hubs. So we can put our different brands on those hubs, as well as our testing environments as well, QA, pre-prod, and the developer environment as well. Also, another feature of Amplience, which is really good, is they have like a live preview section, so that our product team, when they do go to create content for our website, they can preview it straight away, such as if they've got like a Black Friday event coming up, and they can just see exactly how that looks like, then schedule it, and then and get it ready for testing. Yeah, that's me. I'll pass over to Simon to talk about micro front ends.
Cheers, Neil. Yeah, so this is something that we're very actively working on at the moment, micro front ends. So I guess as a kind of as a problem statement, why we're doing this. So our new web team, our current path to production introduces certain bottlenecks, which very much kind of diminishes our capacity to deliver updates regularly to our customers. So presently, owing to our kind of monolithic architecture, all modifications to the new web platform are processed through the same GitLab CI/CD pipeline that Neil discussed earlier on, and that necessitates testing in various environments, also discussed by Neil, so QA and pre-prod. A single flaw, regardless of its size, can delay a release. So, if we introduce a defect in one of those environments, everything has to halt while we kind of fix that defect. Releases often include work from our multiple squads that we have in New Web. And all those squads are effectively kind of held up. They miss their sprint goals. We fail to kind of realize true CI/CD, and I guess most critically, customers are deprived of new features. So solution is micro front end architecture. So moving from monolith over to micro front ends. That's what we've done to address the problem, and we're trying to incrementally implement that at the moment across our kind of our new web platform. So this approach will enable us to establish distinct deployment pipelines to production, segmented by customer journeys. A bottleneck, such as like prolonged testing, defect occurrence, etc., in one journey will not necessarily inhibit updates throughout other journeys from deploying their code to production. So our front-end teams can now develop features autonomously. For example, a defect introduced on the bike page won't halt the search team, for example, from delivering their enhancements, as the search journey would be separated away into its own kind of dedicated continuous delivery flow. Tech we used for this was actually built into Next.js. It's a thing called Next.js zones. If anyone's interested, there's Next docs. You can scan the QR code there. Very interesting bit tech. We also considered Webpack Module Federation. We did a POC on proof of concept on both of those options, and it just seemed like Next.js gave us exactly what we wanted, which was the segment by micro front ends based on journey. So how does Next.js work in terms of zones? So zones are defined in config, with each representing a micro front end. So there's what we call a host app. You'll see in the diagram there, which takes a request from the customer, e.g. /checkout or /search or /product, and the host app then determines the correct zone to load. Now across zones, the customer remains on the same domain, and this all happens on the server side. So nothing kind of customer facing happens. It all just happens on the server side. Each micro front end has now got its own pipeline, as I mentioned, and it's also got its own associated unit tests, end-to-end tests, and kind of static code analysis, such as the SonarQube, which Neil mentioned. With micro front ends being a subset of the monolith, pipelines now run much faster, just due to them containing less code. So the tests are very focused on that particular area of code. To accomplish this, we've had to make quite a few changes. So I guess we can start at common components library or shared library as it is on that diagram. So our new web front end uses React components. These are broken down and shared across various features for composability and consistency across our code base. So this increases maintainability by reducing code duplication and that kind of thing. As we transition to micro front ends, we created this common components library, and that holds all of our common components as well as shared functionality. That was all moved into the library as an installable NPM module. We use rollup config to package the library, and we publish versions via GitLab. So you can see in the diagram there an example of micro front ends that we may have in the future. So home, checkout, product details page, account, etc., etc. Those all consume the shared library, and then the host app kind of orchestrates all of this, and the client just hits the host app and doesn't know any different. We also introduced at this time Storybook while we were doing the common components library, or we enhanced our current Storybook offering, I should say. So we can now visualize the components as they're changed, and so this is used by developers, UX, product, the QA test team, etc. So for testing common components, our feature dev environments, which Neil spoke about earlier, but basically every time we push any kind of commit up to our repository, a feature dev environment is spawned, and you can use that to test. It's an isolated environment specific to branches. So we'll get a Storybook along with that as well. So QAs can go on and have a check and make sure it all works and looks as it should do and is ready to be shared across micro front ends. The aim is to have shared components working independently and not relying on any app-specific context or environment-specific context or config. Future improvements to this, so we could have complete automation in the common components library. Storybook has got a suite of tools which allows us to automate functional testing in components as well as doing some visual regression testing. So this will reduce the need for manual QA checks and speed us up in terms of development and release cadence. Some of the challenges that we had with micro front ends, so sharing state. So mentioned earlier on, we use Redux for our state management. Some of that state needs to be shared across micro front ends, and out of the box, this doesn't work with Next zones. So our solution was, well, we already had a solution for another problem, which actually lends itself quite well to this. So we use a persistence library for our state management. In this case, it's a library called Redux Persist. We'd already adopted this to maintain a subset of our Redux store across browser tabs and windows. The exact same solution actually works very well for micro front ends as well. So using an event listener on the browser, we can rehydrate the Redux state across micro front ends. Another challenge was authentication. So we use Next-Auth0 combined with Keycloak to manage authentication. Because each micro front end will be its own standalone app, they all need to re-authenticate as the customer moves between one micro front end and another. So this increases API calls to get those customer details, introducing additional overhead to both our customers and the related services. Solution to this. So again, we already had a solution for another problem, which lends itself quite well to this. So we use cache management. We already had that for a subset of our API calls. This currently uses in-memory caching for optimal performance. So if you're not familiar with in-memory caching, that's essentially, think of it as a variable in Node that you can just reach to and grab a value out of if it's within a certain time span. So in-memory caching is per container, which doesn't out of the box lend itself well to this particular problem because each micro front end is on its own container in AWS. However, our kind of existing caching solution, or we kind of decided to use that one in particular based on it having a Redis adapter. So that enables us to have a centralized cache store for particular requests. So in this case, customer details API, we can store those in another container, Redis, and just grab them from there, and it's all centralized. So brilliant. Another problem, logging. So we have various kind of logs on our current monolith, and we wanted to make those kind of specific to micro front end so we can see where each log was being generated. So the monolith architecture has got server-side and client-side logging. We use Pinot Logger, EKS like Elastic. We use Akamai and Impulse respectively for client-side logging. With the introduction of micro front ends, we'd like these to be split per micro front end so that we can accurately determine the source of each log. Our existing solution for the monolith was adapted to capture data which references the micro front end source. And using these logs, which include performance metrics, we can target and capture incremental improvements per micro front end. So with the addition of a few fields added to the logs, we can filter and determine where logs are kind of coming from, where we've got areas for improvement, where we've made improvement, and we can shout about it. One last challenge, styling. So we want to keep our styles aligned, very consistent across micro front ends. The solution here was to reach for, again, a bit of existing tech that we had, post CSS, in this case, mixins, and we could add those to the common components library mentioned earlier. So mixins, which are used heavily to provide the multi-brand theming that Neil spoke about, also allow us to maintain consistency across our micro front ends. So each micro front end just needs to import them from the common components library and use them. And every time we change styles in one place, they're brought over to another place. So those were that's a rundown of the challenges we faced so far, and how we solved them. I'll pass back over to Neil to talk a little bit about the graduate scheme at M Brown.
Thanks, Simon. Yes, so as I mentioned, I'm a graduate coming to the end of a 2-year graduate scheme. I graduated from Salford University in 2022 and then joined M Brown shortly after. So the onboarding process at M Brown was pretty interesting at first. I think we sort of jumped into a squad straight away and started getting sort of hands-on with like different agile ceremonies. And then there was a project for a community of us graduates. So we had a project straight away to have a GitLab dashboard to manage our merge requests queue. And that was using a lot of the tech that we use for the front end website, and also using a lot of the Git flow and the agile processes that we were using at M Brown at the time. So that was a real good boost for us as graduates. And then since then, we've gone on to develop a load of different features. Myself personally, being part of the multi-branding squad, going into the releasing the websites such as Jacamo, and then working now on JD Williams and on the CMS as I've recently joined. But throughout all of our grad schemes, a bunch of us have rotated around different areas in front end search, apps teams as well, platform, CMS myself, and our new financial services projects as well. So the graduate scheme here has been brilliant in that sort of sense, pushing forward and moving around and growing in our careers. Well, I'll pass on to Diane to talk about platform.
Thanks, Neil. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Diane Rowland. I am Head of Cloud and Platform at M Brown. So I've been fortunate to be here at M Brown since I also arrived as a graduate, which was just a few years ago, not a lot, honest. And so as part of that, I've really kind of experienced and been on that journey that M Brown have been on for quite a while now. So I've had a really good experience in seeing the progress that we've made. Today, I'm just really excited to share with you our journey of transitioning from WebSphere on-prem to the cloud, but from a platform perspective, and some of the challenges and achievements that we've made. So firstly, just to cover our approach. So we chose AWS as our cloud provider just prior to the move initially, for the same reasons that many other companies started moving to the cloud around that point, to kind of allow us to leverage all those benefits of the cloud, only paying for what you use, the resiliency, etc. We decided to use AWS above other cloud providers, really due to the maturity of AWS at that time and the breadth of services that were available to us. Additionally, we partnered with a third party who had lots of experience in building in the cloud to help guide us through that migration process, so ensuring that we had a smooth transition, because prior to that, we had a team of very talented platform engineers who had great experience in Linux and WebSphere technology, but not really any experience in working in the cloud. And we wanted to make sure that we really kind of tapped into that experience that we had, but took them on that journey with us. So we found using the third party's experience really helpful to guide us in that architecture that would allow us to scale, get the right account structures, incorporate security by design, whilst our engineers really work with those guys to learn the new skills on the job. So the team have completed quite a bit of AWS training and certifications where possible, so that they can reinforce those kind of on-the-job skills that they're learning. And we are still encouraging the progression of those going forward across a wider platform than just platform, obviously out into kind of the development community and beyond. So we've now really heavily reduced our reliance on that third party and are technically leading and delivering the majority of infrastructure and support ourselves. So that's a really great step forwards. Of course, every journey comes with its challenges. So kind of a few of those just on the left of that slide. We faced obstacles such as largely increase in scope. I think everybody always experiences that no matter what project they're delivering. We started looking off at creating the React front end and so forth that the guys earlier have talked about. Very valid reasons that grew into building out all the microservices that would support that functionality. And I think we've built kind of 60 plus platforms and microservices to date to support that move. Also the new CMS system, Strapi, that Neil talked about earlier. And we also decided to move to a new CDN and WAF provider at that point as well, Akamai. So we didn't make life easy for ourselves, but everyone loves a challenge, and it's been a really good challenge to work through. So in addition, there were challenges of legacy integrations to work through. So we built most things on the new web platform, but we made the decision at the time to keep our kind of My Account customer servicing pages linking through to our existing legacy websites. That causes complexities in rules behind the scenes, so and how we work. So we used a functionality within Akamai, their cloudlets, for audience segmentation to allow us to serve a percentage of our traffic as we moved through that implementation process to our customers. So we started off at kind of 2%, 5% rollout to allow us to kind of learn quickly around what was working and what were some of the challenges that we were encountering, so we could fix those quickly before rolling out to a greater amount of customers. The challenge of building at pace and learning a new technology is always challenging, but I think the team took the challenge and ran with that, and they've done a great job in transitioning into becoming SMEs on AWS and in the cloud. Finally, there's a lot of push to build new and from scratch, but one thing it feels like we probably should have paid a little bit more attention to is how we do things on our legacy platform. So yes, the technologies are older, but the platform is one that we have matured over many years. And things like, how do we diagnose and get to the root of problems with access logs and the right monitoring and alerting? We could probably have taken a little bit more learning from that and moved that into the new website early doors. But then that's always easy in hindsight, and it's definitely something we're looking at going forward. Just to move on to our successes. So we have successfully built and migrated multiple workloads now into the cloud. So that includes the hosting with the React front end, the content management system, and the microservices all on AWS. It's not only improved reliability, but it's also enabled us to innovate and deliver value to our customers at a faster pace, as Dawn called out earlier. One of the key enablers of our success has been the implementation of infrastructure as code across our infrastructure. So this has provided us with much better visibility, auditability, and also enabling us to automate and standardize our deployment processes. We've chosen to use HashiCorp's Terraform for this. There's obviously also CloudFormation, which is AWS's offering, but the team chose to use Terraform due to being able to kind of modularize a lot more with that tool. Also, we make a number of calls out to a number of different providers within Terraform. So things like we use Vault, Grafana, and Consul as a service mesh, and we're able to use it across multiple cloud providers as well. So we're starting to work with GCP, and we're looking at rolling Terraform through that as well. We've built pipelines for each microservice to allow squads to release changes independently. And we've now got, as we talked about, the number of releases earlier that we could do. But the benefit as well is it's not the platform engineers that are doing most of those releases. It's the squads releasing their own changes through that route to live, all the way into production that Neil covered earlier on that route to live. And they're able to do that multiple times a week. So as we progress with the micro front end work that's ongoing, that's really going to help our ability to release more frequently and independently as well. So furthermore, we've matured in our ways of working and our culture. We've really fostered that culture of collaboration, which is improving day by day within the teams. Innovation's a lot easier now, easier to set up a proof of concept and try new functionality and solutions within our AWS sandboxes, and continuous improvement, empowering our teams really just to embrace that change and drive those positive outcomes. We're on a journey, still lots to do, but it's really helping us drive benefits from these things. Next slide, please. Just briefly to cover our DevOps tech stack at N Brown. When you look at kind of what we've had on our existing legacy platforms on the left to where we are now, yeah, there is a lot more, but there's a lot more enablers as well to give us that best view of our platforms. Mentioned earlier, we use GitLab for our code repository tooling and to control our deployments and our feature toggles. We've also deployed a range of security tooling from AWS across our estate that really gives us that early visibility on any vulnerabilities and any other breach of security or threats. So we've rolled out Inspector, Guard Duty, and Security Hub. We have a service mesh in place that helps to provide observability and control that service-to-service communication. And there's more to do within that to leverage those benefits that a mesh can offer. But again, it's just that maturity that we're going through at the moment. And we're also using Grafana for our visibility of monitoring and alerting on those new platforms. In addition to that, we're now branching out onto other cloud providers as well, based on using the best functionality for the job. So we're starting to build out our GCP for our data platform, and we're also using Microsoft Azure for SSO, and also at the moment replacing our current Citrix estate. So this brings some added complexity from navigating between clouds and that governance around it, but also you get the advantages then of being able to leverage the right cloud for the right. We're using Akamai, as mentioned before, for our CDN and WAF capabilities, but we're also utilising some of their additional features like image and video manager, which Simon mentioned before. So the benefit of using that tool is it really allows us to make sure that we're serving the right image on our website for the right job. So whatever device you're on, whatever platform you're using, we are actively ensuring that that right image, that the best image that we can provide for you is delivered at the time. We're also using the Cloudlet features. So that gave us, as mentioned before, the ability to roll out to new web and increase that percentages, and allowing us to only release to the traffic that we wanted. So while we were going through that rollout, we weren't negatively affecting our SEO. In addition, we use Akamai's mPulse and Splunk's Rigor tooling. So that gives us our real user monitoring and our synthetic monitoring, and shows us really how customers are interacting with our sites, which browsers and devices are seeing better response times, helps with our performance, and how we can improve these things. And also when customers might be having issues, and quickly alerting us to these so we can respond and quickly identify problems and which platforms they might be impacting. Next slide, please. So kind of what's next? So looking ahead, we've got some really exciting initiatives on the horizon. We're focused on delivering the work for the next brand, so JD Williams on this new platform, enhancing that CMS with the strategic one that Neil went through earlier, and improving that My Account experience from our customers. Additionally, we're working on enhancements in the DevSecOps space. So we're really starting to explore what ways we have to enable developers to move faster while maintaining that robust security posture. We're also starting to look more into self-service capabilities within the platform engineering space to support that moving at pace, along with making sure that we are automating any repeatable tasks, and also multi-cloud governance to make sure we've got the right efficiency, flexibility, and compliance across that growing cloud environment. So in conclusion, our journey from WebSphere on-prem to the cloud has been really transformative. By embracing AWS, fostering the right culture, focusing on the job training and technology, we've achieved real significant milestones and hopefully positioned ourselves for continued success in the future to respond quickly to market changes that we need to be able to do as a digital retailer. But there's still loads to go at, and we certainly can't afford to stop and stand still. So onwards and upwards. Thank you. That's it for me.
Amazing. Thank you so much to all the speakers for the amazing presentations and for taking the time today to take our attendees through N Brown's journey. We've had a lot of questions, so if we can't get through all of them, we will follow up with an email to answer them. And in the meantime, if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A section. We've got one here from Simona, and I'll open the floor to anyone who wants to pick this question up. When do you plan to launch the new e-commerce platform for JD Williams brand? And I'll open the floor to anyone who wants to answer this.
That's a great question. I think it's very much in development at the moment. So we've rolled out a couple of new features that JD Williams required as part of this. So JD Williams in particular is going to be a brand that takes a bit more care than the others, just because it's got its own feature set. But those are already in tested. So I believe the current plan is quarter.
Aiming around the summertime, I think we're looking at the moment, Simon.
Yeah, it's a quarter 2, 3. I was going to say it kind of aligns. Yeah, so yeah, touch wood. we're on target for quarter 2, 3 summertime.
Amazing, exciting. And again, opening the floor. Did you consider using TypeScript, Node.js for your microservices rather than Java to consolidate on the same tech choice across front end and back end?
I'd love to answer that. I wasn't around at the time.
Go
I
for
would,
it.
I would have very much had my hand up for kind of vote if that was a vote. But maybe David might have a bit more background there. But I know that our microservice teams have got their own kind of preferred tech stack. They're not, those microservices aren't written by the front end guys, so I guess it's kind of more their territory.
I think quite a lot of that at the time, I wasn't particularly close, but I think a lot of it was based around our existing skill set as well. So we had a large set of developers that had that experience in Java from working on the old platform. So I suppose it's the question of not trying to change too much at one time as well, and working with the skill sets that you've got.
Amazing. Thank you. And then we've got another one from Simona. Are you using Scrum as a framework for agile development? Anyone wants to pick this one up as well?
I can go. Yes, we are. So M Brown's had a gradual role of agile. They've been on an agile transformation over the last few years. DT were kind of already there for the most part. We kind of just doubled down, made ourselves. I guess I don't know if anyone's fully agile, but we're very much kind of agile. We have all of those kind of ceremonies and squad-based ceremonies that you'd expect from agile. So from a DT point of view, we're very much kind of bought in. If that answers the question.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of work on that, and we're also doing a lot of work at the minute as well around rolling out agile squads across the business. So historically, the rollout of agile has been very much a kind of IT function specifically. So our COO Nuno has done a lot of work recently around how do we roll out that agile methodologies and the benefits that gives us across a lot of our business trading squads. So that's proving really successful at the moment and is underway.
Amazing. We've got another one here. Do you have any plans to fully move away from the mainframe eventually?
Yeah, shall I have a quick chat about that, Diane? So yeah, so I think M Brown's background with mainframe. So we've been using a mainframe for over 40 years. So 40 years of development on a mainframe. So thousands of applications, hundreds of database tables. And as with any business, insurance companies, banks that have been around for as long as we have, it's not an easy task to kind of modernize that back end. So there is a general desire to continually modernize our tech stack, and use obviously cost-effective, modern, well-supported technologies. So there is a direction of travel there. So in terms of bringing in new composable architecture to kind of replace some of that existing functionality we have in the mainframe, I would imagine our mainframe will still be around in a few years' time though. So I don't know whether you want to add anything else onto that, Diane.
No, just that it's very much on our minds at the moment, and it is a piece of work that's kind of getting on our roadmaps in terms of how best do we do it, how best do we look to move away, but without kind of causing any impact on what we've already got, and do it in a safe manner over time, that kind of still works with that strategy that we've got to move over to New Web Fully as well. So yeah, a lot of work to do, but it's definitely something that's on our roadmap at the moment to start.
Amazing. We've got a question here for Don. How do you approach, I know you've replied to this in the Q&A section, but for anyone who's not seen it, how do you approach aligning the product development with the company's goals?
There we go.
Sorry. So our company is really good at sharing their goals, and they're quite clear. So once we've got them goals, we'll be able to produce our product roadmaps, which then leads into us creating OKRs that feed into them quarterly.
Amazing. And then I think Stacey, this one is more for you. Are you hiring for any remote full-time positions?
So currently all our roles are hybrid. Now that does mean something different to different teams. So some people come in to the office maybe once a week, once every other week, once a month, 3 times a week. So it really just depends on the role requirements. Yeah, unfortunately, no role is remote. So what I would suggest in that, if there is a certain role that you're interested in, we usually do put on the job advert, generally 1 day a week, generally twice a month, or just reach out to myself just to confirm.
Amazing. And in terms of career growth, Stacey, feel free to jump on this one, but would love to get everyone's perspectives as well. What are the career growth opportunities like, and what kind of support is there at N Brown?
So we follow something called the Sophia framework. What we do encourage colleagues across the business is to take lots of opportunities that we offer as a business, but also look externally as well from a learning opportunity perspective. So we offer sponsor my studies. So that might be, you know, someone who's interested in doing maybe a certification. The team do a lot of like lunch and learn sessions as well. They take the opportunity to work within their chapters to share information as well. What I think is a really great thing about N Brown is we've got around about 1,700 colleagues. We've got lots of different areas of the business, so logistics, finance, data, product, merchandising, people, HR. And what you will find is, yes, there will be colleagues within the business who have taken the traditional route within technology. But then actually we've also have colleagues who have worked in different areas of the business who have decided to change direction and really taken an interest in whether they wanted to go into a PMO role, or whether they wanted to go into a product role, or they wanted to learn how to code and go down the development route. We've got a data academy, so colleagues across the business can join our data academy. I think, you know, we've got a couple of people who are presenting who have been in this business for many years. Dawn, Diane, I don't know if you want to talk about your journeys with regards to how you've developed. I know, Dawn, you did touch upon it in the presentation, going from working as a change analyst to working in as a tester to now working as a product manager. So I think what I would say is opportunities are there. You're encouraged to network across the business and really explore what could my career look like.
Amazing. It's a lot of opportunities to grow. Diane, do you want to add anything to that, or that?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I've been here 22 years. So that quite so yeah, I started as a mainframe assembler programmer as a graduate. Enjoyed programming, did quite a lot of work in that space. Decided that actually kind of getting my head out of the computer and working more with people was more my interest. So I moved to do some systems analysis role, business analysis, then moved into project management and delivered some of our projects over the years on the on the old websites. And then from there moved into kind of the role of head and cloud and platform. So yes, you know, there are opportunities and there's a lot of growth that you can make. Some, as Stacey says, you know, a lot of that you have to put time and effort into yourself, but then there's a lot of kind of supporting tooling and pathways that you can embrace in the company as well. So
amazing, thank you. And got a question here from Senator, and I think Simon, you want to answer it. You said you use Redux for state management, but it doesn't work with Next.js. What was the name of your alternative system you're using? I couldn't hear what the name was.
Yeah, so we continue to use Redux for our state management. There's no issue particularly with Next.js on its own. The issue is more with when we wanted to move to micro front-end architecture and then sharing those kind of stateful stores across our micro front ends. So the tech that I mentioned there was called Redux Persist. That's a package, you'll find it on NPM, which persists all of your state or some of your state. You can configure it however you like to persist across. We used it traditionally for cross-tab browsing, but it also works very well for kind of cross micro front ends as well. So we can share, we can kind of whitelist some of those Redux reducers across micro front ends. It works very well.
Amazing, thank you. Conscious of time, it's 1 o'clock. I just want to say thank you to all the speakers for today's presentation. I know there's a lot of questions that we still haven't answered, but we'll send a follow-up email with an answer to all those questions. I just want to open now the floor to Stacey if you want to speak about careers and open roles and where people can find more about the roles. I'll let you,
Yeah, thank you. So we've had a lot of interest actually in the Q&A about what opportunities we have and what they look like. What I would say is have a look on our careers website, our new careers website as well, which we launched a couple of weeks ago. So you'll see all of our vacancies in there. Now, if there's something on there that you're interested in, do feel free to connect with myself. If there's a role that you don't see but you have that skill set, again, reach out to us. We may not have the right role today, but who knows, tomorrow might be different. So I would suggest certainly reach out to us, have a look on our careers website, and we've really enjoyed speaking to you all today, and thank you so much for the questions and the engagement there, and we will absolutely follow up and answer any of your questions. And really pleased to have shared our story.
Amazing, thank you. And thank you to all the speakers as well, and have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.